Hello, everyone. You are listening to Nerd Cultured with the Sons of Glitches. I am John. We've got Mike and Remy here tonight.
What up?
And
Yo.
what up?
What up?
And I had a few things that I wanted to talk about here, but I don't know. I just don't feel right leaving everyone on such a cliffhanger after last episode. So let's take a few minutes here to wrap up the question that Mike posed on whether or not you can sort of catch lightning in a bottle twice by releasing the same game. So what do we think, boys? Mike, you brought it up. You go ahead and give us your theory.
Well, the reason I brought it up is because you were talking about Spyro and Crash, and the sort of the re-releases of those games, which are those aren't sequels, right? They're the exact same game,
right?
Just prettier,
right? I mean, it's not the most it's not the most uncommon thing in the world to see. Like, I've been playing. I've played through The Last of Us Remastered, right? Which is a re-release, not that far behind the initial release of the game, but that was really just a graphics upgrade for PS4 from PS3. So okay, fine.
Right.
From but the Spyro and Crash thing, it's like, okay, here's two titles from the 90s that we're going to take and we're going to remake them in, whenever they came out, 2017, 2018, and we're going to, make them look all nice and pretty, and we're going to update them and all this kind of stuff. They're trying to do the exact same thing now with a much bigger property than that, which is World of Warcraft with classic WoW. I have seen a lot of people be really excited about this, and I'm having a hard time getting excited about it because I don't know that I want to go back 15 years. Like, 15 years ago, Warcraft was revolutionary.
Right.
Vanilla WoW was revolutionary. And that's what made it what it was. It was a fleshed out, accessible MMO for the masses that was also nuanced and detailed enough for the serious MMO geeks who did actually exist back then. But I don't know that I want to, do I really want to do that? Do I really want to pay that money and go back? I would rather, and where I keep arriving with that is, I would much rather remember those games being as amazing as they were to me then, than try to go back to them now, and be disappointed. It's the whole don't meet your heroes thing.
Yeah, and honestly, I 100% agree, Mike. And we discussed it last time a little bit about the Spyro, and I was like, oh man, Spyro, I love that game. And Remy said, well, you played that new one, and the answer was no, and for the same reason. I remember those games. I played them all. They stick in my head as being a ton of fun. What if these new versions, the remastered versions, aren't as fun as I remember? What if it cheapens the experience? Kind of thing. It seems to me like more of a money-making tool than an actual effort. Yeah, a cash grab, more than an actual effort to appease the fans, right? I would much rather see a new game or an expansion, or, they could just as easily, in the Spyro example, just made a new game. Why not?
Right.
There's clearly a market for it.
Yeah,
people would clearly buy it.
Yeah,
so what the fuck?
See, with Spyro,
another similar thing, and Mike, you mentioned this last time too. This game that's getting redone is Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah. Well, see, okay, that's different though. So I did a little.
Oh, okay.
I did a little research on that. So that is not a shot-for-shot remake of Final Fantasy VII with upgraded graphics. That is a complete retelling of that story, updated, 20 odd years later with modern technology. You can do stuff like I've seen clips from that game. You can do stuff in the remaster that you could never even think of doing in the original version. The combat system is completely different. The way you travel through the world is completely different. What the way in which they're telling the story has been like they took, okay, here's the story of the game, here's what we're trying to do with it. We're gonna tear everything to shreds and we're gonna build this all from scratch. It's not a reskinning. It's not a a remaster. It's a completely, for all intents and purposes,
that is interesting.
New game. That is interesting. I'm gonna buy that game. I want to play that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, well, actually, I was gonna say, and now you've gone and changed my mind. Damn you! That I am one of the few that I would say is a Final Fantasy fan. Period. That really did not enjoy 7.
Wow.
It was too. I'm trying to think of the best word to describe it. I don't want to say simple in its mechanics, but that's probably the best thing that I can think of right now.
Just like combat system wise, or
yeah, right.
Yeah, the combat
was good.
Was very, very, very simple.
And it could be because the first Final Fantasy game that I ever played was actually 9, and so I got 9 when it released, I think, and played through it, and I was like, dude, this is fucking awesome. Wait, there's more?
Yeah.
And at that time, on the what I had was a PlayStation 1, and on the PlayStation 1 there was 8 and 7.
Right.
And I got 8 next, and I played that, and I was like, oh man, this is awesome. Gunblades, cool. And then I got 7, and I was like, yeah, right. Fucking Gunblades are. I actually have a Gunblade replica on my wall.
Do you really?
True story. I do really.
Dude, you're probably one of the only people who has that. Nobody likes Final Fantasy VIII.
Yeah, I kept that company in business for another week or two. But yeah, and then I went to 7, and yeah, it just didn't. It didn't. And that's probably why, because the combat system was a little older, a little cheaper.
Yeah, I think
right,
if you had played them in the reverse order, you would probably have a different opinion. But
yeah, probably so.
No,
but that being said,
that.
that being said, with what you just said, and all that was information that I did not know, I'm now super interested. But wait a minute, hold on. Is this PlayStation only exclusive?
Yeah.
No, fuck me, dead.
Sorry.
Well, I lost my boner.
Sorry.
Let's continue.
So, quick question for you, John. All I got out of that story is you started with 9 and didn't realize that there were 8 before it.
No.
just want to clear that
because
up.
I don't
Wait,
know
there
how
are more?
sequels work.
Yeah, obviously, I had never even heard of Final Fantasy before then.
So the fact that it was number 9 didn't clue you into.
No.
Hold on a second. Wait a minute. But you made it through. You made it through your entire life as a gamer up until the release of Final Fantasy IX, which was in like 1990. It was in like 99 or 2000.
I think I was in high school.
Yeah, so because you're like 6 or 7 years younger than me, so yeah.
It was either late 90s or early 2000s.
It was like late 90s, early 2000s, because Final Fantasy VIII came out in like 97, 98. So 9 had to come out in like 2000, 2001.
Yeah. Which I would have been in high school in 2001.
So you made it.
Yeah,
you made it through your entire life as a gamer up until you were in fucking high school before you heard of Final Fantasy. How is that possible?
Okay, so we're gonna do a little review here.
Oh, Jesus.
Fun goes fake, Mike. All right, so
different kinds of cheese, John.
Yeah, cheese. Right. So that PlayStation was my first mainstream console.
Oh, that's right.
That I
forgot
had.
about that.
Before that, I had 2 consoles, and I actually, Remy, I told you this, and I told you wrong because I remembered afterward that I had another one before. So before the PlayStation, I had an Atari Jaguar.
Jaguar was awesome.
It was way ahead of its time.
That controller was a fucking behemoth, dude. It took 4 hands to use it. So, that's what I had before that, and obviously that platform didn't have these games on it.
No.
Right.
That was its biggest problem.
And before that. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Probably why I didn't make it. And before that, I had something, and I don't know who made it, okay? But I had something called an Odyssey, and it was like everything was like the fucking 2-pixel, little games that, it was stick figures that shot, little square balls out of their guns at each other, and the controllers were a stick and 1 button. That was the loadout. So that was actually my very first console.
Magnavox Odyssey 2 came out in 1978.
So that was my very first console.
Holy balls,
wow.
dude!
So I had that, and then I had
Was
the
that the
Atari,
one with
and then I
pretty
got
much the VCR? It was essentially a VCR.
Yeah, it's basically what this looks like. Hey, look, Pac-Man.
Holy shit, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, anyway, so it wasn't until I got the PlayStation 1 that I actually started playing any like mainstream games, and so, and I had played some Nintendo before. I had a cousin that had a SNES, but only had a few games, and it just happened to not be any of those, right? And so yeah, I had never heard of Final Fantasy before that time. Just because I've never had anything to play it on. I never knew anybody that had one.
Okay.
So
okay.
Yeah, and then but once I got it, Mike, I was hooked. Okay.
No. I'm not. Hey, look. I mean, I was a big Final Fantasy head, really, up until Final Fantasy. I guess up until X.
Yeah, X was the last one I played.
Yeah. Well,
that was the one with the dresses that determined your abilities, right?
No. That was X2. I got like halfway through X2, and I was kind of like,
dresses.
Yeah, they were called dress spheres.
I genuinely a mechanic of the game. I didn't play it, but I've heard about it.
Yeah.
I've never actually played through a Final Fantasy game. I don't care for them.
I'm not going to sit here and try to sell you on Final Fantasy. I mean, I've been kind of out. I'm not going to bother, but I've been kind of out on the series since whenever the hell X came out. Early 2000s. But I know X2. Yeah, X2 came out in like 2003, 2004, and that was the last time I played one. I got halfway through that game, and I was like, nah, I think we're good.
Yeah.
I never did X2. X was the last one that I played, and that was when I was in college.
I did play way too much blitzball in that game, but that's really neither here nor there.
I remember blitzball.
Oh, blitzball! But so bringing this all the way back, nice little Final Fantasy rabbit hole there. But so, I mean, is this possible? Like, okay, I mean, like, fine, taking a game like Final Fantasy VII and literally remaking it from scratch completely, and basically turning it, taking a game that doesn't, that's the same story and the same characters and the same kind of sort of basic visuals ish from the original, and remaking it for the modern era. Like, that's interesting to me. I'm with you, John. I'm with you on that. Like, yes, fine.
Yeah,
like,
I
let's
agree
go.
with that.
Yeah.
Let's go do that. But am I Remy? What about? I mean, you like.
Well, so I don't know that I have much of a place to stand on this topic because none of my beloved games from my childhood have ever been remade. So, with the exception,
there's been no Earthworm Jims.
Right? They haven't fucking remade Earthworm Jim. So, with the exception of Halo 2, which is not really that old, so it's not super relevant. That being said, I really enjoyed replaying that game when it was updated with today's graphics. But as far as classic games that I grew up with, I really have no input as far as that's concerned because I don't have it. So I couldn't tell you.
I'm not asking so much. Do you like the ones that you've played? I'm saying, does the idea appeal to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that if they remade something that
Let's go.
Something that I loved as a child and really, really got an opportunity to play it with today's technology and graphics, I'd be all about that. I would 100% play that game.
So it's mechanically it's the exact same game.
Yeah, I'm all for it. Let's do it.
It's just got better graphics. You're in on that?
100%.
Yeah, see, I don't think I am.
Because you guys both have issues with lack of story, lack of solid control. I find those things charming, whereas you guys find them annoying.
They are annoying.
Oh man!
Oh, see, and that's why I stand where I am.
You guys,
I swear to God.
Hold on. We gotta take a second to review here. You guys have trouble with games that have a lack of story and a lack of control.
I didn't say a lack of control. I might have, but anyway, wonky controls or imperfect controls. Let's say that.
You are every shitty game developer's wet dream. Do you know that? It's like, oh, we can put out whatever the fuck we want. This guy will buy it.
See,
Not only, well, as long as it's not given a whole lot of thought ahead of time, apparently it is true. As long as the controls are wonky and there is no story, it's like all we have to do is spend no time on this, and Remy will buy it. That's all we have to do.
If somebody has put the care and love into the characters and the gameplay and the way the world is built, I'm all for it. That's the kind of shit I eat up.
But how can you do that and have zero story? And you can't build a world and have a character that's well built.
Like hell you can't. See,
how?
We're gonna get into games that I love that you absolutely detest. Like Overcooked. Overcooked has a shit story. I wholeheartedly admit that. The characters are one-dimensional across the board, but the gameplay itself is fucking phenomenal. The graphics are fantastic. The controls are okay. But everything in there is super, super charming. And I fucking love it.
But I don't... Okay, you just contradicted yourself like 17 times. So,
okay, go for it.
So, wait a minute. Oh, God. Okay.
Oh, I broke my can.
So, you said as long as the characters are well built and the world is interesting...
The world.
No, you said characters. You did. John, back me up. He said characters. Did he not?
Uh-huh.
I said if the characters are one-dimensional. I don't really give a shit.
But that means they're not well built. That means they're one-dimensional and don't...
Graphically, Mike. Graphically.
Oh, my God. Okay, that's well rendered, not well built.
Fuck. Whatever.
Oh, no, not whatever. Try to pay attention to the language we've all agreed on, okay? Those don't mean the same goddamn thing. Building a character is not the same thing as drawing one. Building one implies personality and, some sort
That's
of
not true.
depth.
That is not true.
Yeah, I was confused by that too.
All right, so maybe I didn't say it quite right, but games like Overcooked, the characters are super one-dimensional, but they are rendered well, and the gameplay itself is fantastic. It's well done, and the controls are a little wonky, and I like that about it because it makes it more interesting to try to perfect it. It's more of a challenge to me and more engaging for me to actually do what's supposed to be done within that game.
After 5 years of being friends with you, I just figured out why you like racing games so much.
Exactly. I love that shit because it's beautiful. I don't give a shit about the story. As long as the controls are consistent, I'm all for it. Let's do it. If it's funky and weird,
Remy not only likes racing games, he likes making non-racing games to have racing games.
Don't give me this whole bullshit about how Halo Reach is your favorite Halo game of all time. Halo Reach is your favorite racing game of all time. Don't even sit here and try to snow my ass. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
It is both my favorite racing game and my favorite Halo game, bar none.
Hey guys, I got this sweet Rainbow Road built in the forge. Come check it out.
Oh, dude, there is one. It's fucking awesome.
Oh my God.
Oh, I know. That wasn't something I just made up.
But no. Seriously, I don't give a shit how wonky the controls are in a racing game. If it's consistent, I'll perfect that shit and I will kick anyone's ass in it because it's fun to me. It's fun for me to figure out how best to control a wonky steering system.
No, I understand. You're a psychopath. That's
also true.
Yeah, I get that. So your reaction when you take a hold of a controller and you point the car in so you point up and the thing doesn't go up, but rather goes down and to the left and spins around for no reason. Your reaction is not, well, this is badly designed. Your reaction is, these people are geniuses. They're charming geniuses. And I will master this out of respect.
My reaction is, okay, why did it do that and how can I control it?
Fuck
Oh, man.
that noise. Fuck that noise in its fucking face
So-
as hard as it can be fucked. Fuck that shit. I'm not interested in why did it do that. I'm interested in going and playing something else.
Well, we've
So
discovered
I'm
that.
gonna give you my 30-second reason of why I don't like racing games, and the controls are a
Because
big
he
part
doesn't
of it,
like
okay?
playing against me.
That is part of it, and every
That's
time we
also
do
part
it,
of the
we whip
reason
my
I
ass,
don't
and
like
getting your
racing.
ass beat.
Yeah.
Getting your ass beat is not fun in any sense.
I liked Forza when I liked Forza
Let's
a lot.
rephrase
when I
that
played
there,
it by
John,
myself.
because that can be fun.
There's a couple situations where getting your ass beat is fun, but not these. Okay, so here's the thing. So driving games piss me off because actual driving is way easier.
John, have you ever gone in a car over 150 miles per hour?
No. I'm not talking about. Listen, it doesn't matter about the speeds. Okay, I understand that the faster you go, the harder it is to control. I get that.
Okay.
And no, I have not gone in a car that fast.
You should try it. It's
But
fun.
well, maybe I will someday. But even something as simple as driving down the street in a game like GTA, it's not even racing games. It's games that have driving mechanics piss me off. You know, you try to take a turn and you're fucking taking out lampposts and stuff.
Hookers,
You know,
knocking over hookers left and right. It's bad.
Yeah,
Mike,
and
you
you
have
plow
a,
through the
you
whole.
have a skewed idea of how many hookers are actually in GTA. Just putting it out there. Go on, John.
Do I really?
Yeah, you really do. Go on, John.
I'm pretty sure there's 50 for every 100 person.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, like
And if there isn't, back in the day, you could just pop your Game Shark in the back and you could make that happen. So,
oh, fucking Game Shark. All right, so carry on with your reason for not liking good driving games.
no, but yeah, I mean, that's more or less is it. I mean, people can understand from that. Actual driving is way easier.
Well, I mean, look, shockingly, I agree with John on this one. Look, I've done track driving. Okay, I can tell you unequivocally that taking a very fast car around a track is a lot easier in real life than it is in Forza for me.
Right, but that's
that's
where the
mostly-
fun is figuring out the mechanics of the steering.
No,
Oh, y'all are killing me.
because you're wrong.
No.
The steering.
Okay, if I'm wrong, I'm going to use your own logic against you right now.
Okay.
Thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people have praised Forza for being an incredible racing game. Are they wrong? Or do you just not like it because you can't do it?
Actually, no. I just don't like it when I play with you, honestly, because I hate seeing you win at anything ever. But
That's fair. That's why you don't like Chicken Horse too,
that's well. See, the thing is, okay.
or Speedrunners.
No, because okay. Let's put this in context. All right, hold on, just a hot second here. All right, you pick a game that you've cranked at least dozens of hours into that I've never touched, and you immediately throw me into a situation where I'm competing against you, and then you're cackling like a madman every time you win. Oh yeah, that's fun. First of all, way to be a good mentor. Second of all, way to be a gracious winner. And third of all, when we tried to pull you into Divinity, and the situation was reversed, you were so goddamn miserable, I could see it on your face on multi-Twitch. Okay? I don't want to hear this horse shit about it's like because guess what? Whenever you're put in a situation where you have not practiced, touched, played, done anything, that's like taking somebody who has never dribbled a basketball and throwing them into a game with the fucking Boston Celtics. It's not gonna go well. Okay? Are we clear? Do I need to lay this out for you anymore? Are we clear?
My favorite part about that whole thing
fuck.
was you sit there cackling like a madman as Remy's in the background cackling like a madman.
Oh yeah, no, he is. Because he thinks it's funny because he's a fucking sadist.
Because it's
All right?
fucking hilarious. That's why.
Oh man.
Shit.
Yeah, well, it is well known. It is well known, and we've said it time and again. Really, it's well known that we all have different skill sets, and racing certainly is Remy's.
Oh yeah,
and that's
No,
car
totally.
racing. That's things like speedrunners. That's things like Ultimate Chicken Horse is racing. It's platform racing.
Yeah.
Right.
And by the way, I've only put 14 hours into that game. I
Oh,
just looked it up.
Jesus Christ! I can't imagine.
It's more
putting
than
even-
zero.
More than me. And by the way, I would point out that I enjoyed Forza. I was very impressed with Forza until the second I logged into the same game as you. And from that point on, I was just like, well, no, because I can't think about anything except look. I can't. I'm trying so hard to be clear about this, and I feel like I'm not doing a good job. It's never a pleasant experience to have it thrown into your face how much you suck at something. It's really not.
Isn't it, though?
And no, it's
See,
really
okay.
not. At least not for
Here-
me. Okay,
so
maybe
the
this
way
is my
I
own
got-
personal issues here, but if you're, if I'm experiencing a game for the first time, and then I'm immediately confronted with somebody who is not even necessarily you, just anybody who is like, okay, we're gonna go do this thing now, keep up, and they're off, and I'm still sitting there trying to figure out what all the fucking buttons do. Like, yes, I'm gonna be annoyed, and not only that, especially if I'm doing it in front of a live audience, I'm going to be embarrassed. So
I have a bit of a competitive streak at times. I don't know if you've noticed this or not.
oh, do you really?
A little bit, occasionally. So,
Yeah, John, what about you?
Not really. Me, no.
Oh,
bullshit.
lying asshole.
So, okay, the way I'm a big Xbox fanboy. We've already discussed this in previous podcasts. But I used to be a hardcore Nintendo guy. Growing up, I had every Nintendo system, and I thought the other systems were going to fizzle out. Obviously, I was very wrong. But my buddy told me he picked up an Xbox, and he got this new game called Halo.
Yep.
And he invited me over to play, and I was always that guy that, I was always the best of my friends. In whatever game we were playing, that was my thing. I was just good at video games, and no one else could beat me. So I go over there. He trounces me in Hang 'em High Snipers. Just destroys me, and he's sitting there cackling, so I get it. I've been there. But what I did is I went home, I went and bought an Xbox, I bought Halo. 2 weeks later, I called him up and said, hey, you want to play that game that we played a couple weeks ago? What was it, Halo, whatever that was? And I came back and I kicked his ass. That's the kind of shit that I do. I want to learn how to play a game and make it work to my advantage. So if you destroy me in a game, you better believe that if I care at all about that game, I'm going to come back and I'm going to learn how to do it.
Okay,
So
and
I have a
might
very,
have done
very
that,
different reaction.
and I might
That's
have
also
done.
true if you destroy him anally.
Well, we didn't say that, but
Wow. Hashtag anals. Okay.
R.I.P. Rip anal.
So yep.
Oh,
Rip.
rip anals.
Command rip. And Remy, that might have been true 20 fucking years ago when I had the time to do that. Okay? I don't
That right there, that's a fair point. I can give you that. 'Cause
I
don't have
can't
time to
do that.
shit anymore.
It's like, when the fuck
Adulting is the pits.
Yeah, when the
Adulting
so like
sucks.
yes, fine. If in 2002 or 2003, when I was in college and I had encountered this situation, I might have ignored my exams for the next couple of weeks and done exactly what you're saying. Unfortunately, that's no longer an option when, you're pushing 40, you got 3 kids and a full-time job, and, all your gaming time is spent on Twitch. So
Oh boy.
So
you know,
we have gone down one
I
hell
got
of
your
a rabbit
point.
hole.
Have we really?
Yeah,
Oh wow,
which
we've
is
been talking about.
to
Wow,
be
we've
expected.
been we've been ranting at each other for half an hour. Holy shit!
we
Look at that.
really have. And I know John
know.
had a topic in mind, and I don't want to take
It's
it from
cute.
him entirely.
Wait, John's
No,
here?
no. And I really enjoy half my sack of popcorn here is already gone. Listening to you two fucking
Well, okay, hang on.
listening
In our defense, we haven't had one of these fights on the podcast since like the first podcast. We were over.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah, it was time. It was time.
And last podcast
And,
we
you know,
agreed like 3 times, so it had to happen.
Yeah,
that's true.
The karmic
That's
realignment
true.
of the universe.
It's important. It's important to get back to equilibrium by bickering like a couple of wet hens. So
That's right.
Anyway,
So John, you were saying.
Jonathan.
so I do have a topic that was on my mind, and it's something that is pretty near and dear to my heart, and I know Mike's as well. And I don't think as much Remy's, but something I think he's cautiously curious about. And so,
Oh, I'm intrigued.
because of that, I'm going to put him on the spot
Okay.
and ask him to give us a little rundown on how he feels about what experiences he's had, if any, or what experiences he would like to have with tabletop gaming.
Ooh.
Oh. Okay. That's actually a very good topic. I'm curious. So, I have never truly done any tabletop gaming beyond the simple board game. I think the most in-depth I've ever gone is Munchkin, which, by the way, I fucking love. I think it's one of the best games out there. But I have I've watched a number of hours of people play D&D, though I've never actually played it myself.
What are you watching? Critical Role?
No, actually, I watch Heroes and Halfwits,
Oh, okay.
which is the Rooster Teeth, the Achievement Hunter version of that.
Yeah,
show.
I know they're really good. Geek and Sundry's Critical Role is also really good.
So I've
If
heard.
you-
I haven't watched it, but I do intend to eventually. Yes.
Yeah, if you like Rooster Teeth's, you'll like theirs.
Perfect. So that is the depth of my knowledge. So I've learned quite a lot in watching that. I could probably jump into a game pretty seamlessly. I'm sure there will be a lot of questions because I wouldn't be surprised if Rooster Teeth made some modifications and didn't play by the rules entirely. But ultimately, I would be very interested in playing a game specifically with you guys because you have experience and you could hold my hand if necessary. And yeah, I'm all for it. I'm very.
That's a cute image.
Yeah. How you doing, huh? Anyway, so I'm. It's something that I never wanted to do, but over the past couple years, I've grown quite an interest in, and I don't know why that's changed.
Interesting.
I have an idea about why that might be, but Johnny, you're the most.
Go ahead.
No, well, you're the. I wanted to ask you. You're the most active. I mean, I still have all my D&D books, right? I've still got a bunch of old character sheets that I couldn't bear to part with. I've got maps that I made. I original like stuff that I wrote, set in universes I created and all that kind of shit. But you're out of the three of us. I mean, I haven't actually played in years. You're still playing. You're playing Pathfinder, right?
Yep, I do actually, my wife runs for myself and a few of our mutual friends a Pathfinder game once a week.
Right. So what's kept you coming back to out of everything out there? Gaming options are certainly not in short supply.
Sure.
Why sit around? So for somebody like Remy who's interested but has never done it, what's your you and I both do sales for a living. What's your sales pitch?
Oh yeah, the appeal for tabletop games in general. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So the main difference between tabletop games for me and video games, and it's really evolved more and more as games have become more and more mobile. Back in the day, it was not a big deal to have a 8, 10, 12 person LAN at your buddy's house. With a stack of 8 pizzas and 2 cubes of Mountain Dew, right? I mean, but now, we play games 3-4 days a week, but I've never seen either one of you guys face to face,
Right.
And that's in a lot of sense because of our locations, but tabletop games in general have a level of personal interaction with it that and it really depends on the game, but something like D&D or Pathfinder, which is basically the same thing. You can do or be anything.
Yeah.
If you like things a certain way, we've spent hours in this very podcast and in our personal conversations bitching about different things about certain games or whatever. In a game like D&D, Pathfinder, whatever, you don't have that. There's not, if you don't like how something is, or if you want something to work a certain way, as long as it's within the framework of the rules, or if you have a group that's willing to even make house rules on certain items, you can do whatever. And it gives you an ability to sit down with your friends, either literally around a table or even figuratively, an e-table, something like Roll20 software.
Yeah.
And to enjoy and experience the way that you want to, without anybody else. Remy, we discussed earlier how much you enjoy the character creation portion, the building in games. With these types of games, that's what that's all there is. You can make that character to be anything you want to be.
Right, which is one of the reasons I've grown an interest, I think.
Yeah. And and I've had, as Mike says, I've got a drawer that's actually right here to my left, full of character sheets of different builds I've made over the years. Different systems. When I first started, I started in 3.0 D&D, and then it went to 3.5, and then 4.0 sucked. Was just awful.
4 was bad.
And Paizo, who made the Pathfinder system, took that opportunity and made a game that was basically a mirror image of 3.5 D&D with some, I think, healthy tweaks. Probably what 4.0 should have been. And since then I've been on Pathfinder, and actually, funny enough, Pathfinder 2.0 is just finishing playtesting and will be launching soon as well. So, it's an interesting thing. Like I said, there's lots of stuff you can do. It's a huge community of people across the world that do it. Like they run, like Pathfinder specifically has Pathfinder Society modules where you can go to your local game stores and play the same modules that everyone else across the world is playing on certain days and things like that. Very, very interesting stuff, I think.
Yeah. And Remy, what the reason I think it would appeal to you specifically is the amount of freedom and the amount of
if you want to fucking fry that chimichanga, Bubby, do it.
Yeah. That's exactly right. The amount of latitude you have with what you can do and how you can do it is really limited by two things. It's limited by what you can come up with and mathematics, probability.
Sure.
And that's really it. There are some, within the confines of the rules that, like John said, you agree on a rule set that you're using. But within that, you can try to do whatever you want. Whether or not it'll work is a whole other thing. But but it's determined by the roll of the dice. And that's it. If you want to try, like in a video, I'm playing, The Last of Us right now. If I want to try to backflip over a clicker and, slash his calf and try to take, I can't do that. The game doesn't allow it. In D&D, I can do that. I may not pull it off. I may,
right, you have to roll for agility and all that.
Right,
shit.
you have to roll skill checks. You have to, there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into it. But once you figure out the rules and the basics of it, you're really only limited by what the story that you can tell as a group, and the DM, the person who's running the game, does most of that. But the best DMs that I ever had were guys that let the players create the story and adapted to the players to a certain extent. They had the parameters that, it's like, okay, we've got a couple of paths we can go down here, but if the players need to be allowed to go off and kind of create their own thing, and a good dungeon master can follow them. And you'd say, okay, you guys want to go do that. Here's what happens. and you got it's basically improv acting,
Right.
at that level. And there's, when I was in, oh god, I don't know, 7th, 8th grade, something like that. I had a group of friends that we played with consistently. But I had one guy who was my best friend. We would just sit down and basically tell each other stories. We called it verbal D&D, but it was basically just us making up interactive stories between the characters. And
Interesting.
Decide no dice, no character sheets, no nothing. We just made up these sort of fictional avatars of ourselves, and I don't think I've ever told anybody this actually, but
It's a good thing it's not going out on the internet. Or anything.
well, no, but you know what?
Yeah,
but fuck it. I mean, because
There's nothing to be ashamed of. Fuck that.
but that's exactly what it is. It's storytelling. It's storytelling and it's acting, and you substitute probability and chance in real life for you use dice and
A roll of
and
that.
that's
yeah.
it.
Now, John,
Yeah.
you
Yes.
mentioned that what you liked about it was the personal interactivity, right? Do you think that loses something if you do play online with other people?
Yeah, I think so. Not necessarily to an extent where playing online wouldn't be fun or something that I'd be unwilling to do, but to be able to sit there and to have people sit around a table and bring props or stand up to do a charade as part of their role-playing experience, that's something to a certain extent that's lost.
We got
Any
webcams.
e-software that exists.
Yeah, I was gonna say webcams are a thing.
Yeah, no, and like I said,
And guys,
I
guys,
agree.
guys, I have props. Remember?
Oh, Jesus
God.
Christ. They're back.
Yeah, they're back. Yeah, well, and that's true. And of course, as technology continues to advance, those things will be less and less so. Still, I think that that to a certain extent there will always be some level that can't be replicated
Sure.
I would agree.
as far as physical interaction to the interaction. And like I said, it's not necessarily a bad thing, and it wouldn't hinder me from doing anything. But sitting around the table and actually throwing the dice and everything, it's a very unique experience, and it's not even just for D&D and for or for Pathfinder stuff like that. I mean, I've played a ton of tabletop games, various types, through the years. To me, it's just a fun way to do things. You're in complete control of everything, and I don't know, it's interesting.
Yeah, tabletop gaming ultimately for me is the I don't want to say purist because it's that sounds like it's disparaging of video games or whatever, and it's not meant to be. But it's sort of it's the root of everything else for me.
Well, it was games before video games were a thing.
Well, but I mean, like in the sense of so all the times you guys have heard me talk about world building and character development and story and all that kind of stuff. What I always compare all that stuff to in my head is those D&D experiences I had when I was growing up, and is this as impact is this video game part of the reason that I swoon so hard for stuff like Witcher 3 and Divinity
God damn it!
Original
I thought
Sin?
we were gonna make it.
Nope.
Oh, so close! Damn it!
45
Sorry.
minutes in.
Sorry. But part of the reason I swoon so hard for games like that, and John can back me up on this, is because they are the about as close as you can get to that sort of tabletop role-playing experience in a digital format as it currently exists.
And maybe
Yeah, Divinity specifically is definitely the closest I've seen to tabletop D&D.
and maybe
Baldur's
this
Gate
is
3, baby, it's coming.
maybe this is why I'm not as big a fan as those hardcore deep games, because I don't have that love built in.
It's
I don't have a history
definitely
with.
part of it, I think.
You think so? I just it doesn't do as much for me as it obviously does for the vast majority of people that play those games. I'm not saying that there's nothing there for me. I think that there's certainly intrigue, but as far as video games are concerned, a game killing mechanic for me has always been role playing, or not. Excuse me, not role playing. Turn based combat. When you're sitting there at a table or virtually, I couldn't care less. But when it's an actual conversation, I think that would be a different. I would feel very differently about that. But turn-based combat to me has always been just the second I hear that that's a mechanic, I'm typically out. There are very few exceptions to that. Pokemon, when back in the day, I played the hell out of that, but that's turn-based. But I think that stems from my lack of tabletop experience.
It could be, and with video games, it's a little different. In that they can all be done real time. For a tabletop game, it has to be turn based. There's not a there's not a version where you're sitting around a table with 4 or 5 people and all of them are moving, and so yeah, and that could be it. But to me, actually, and I think Mike obviously he started earlier than I did. I didn't play my first D&D game until I was 18 or 19, and I didn't really know what it was about. And I was actually in college at that time, and I went home, and over the summer after I'd gotten in a group, and they were like, mom and dad or whatever was like, what kind of things you were doing, and I saw that, and my dad was convinced, and I mentioned this a little bit last time, but this is actually a real life thing for me, that that D&D in general was the work of Satan, and I was basically in a cult or whatever for doing this thing. Which was weird, very weird for me. But that was my first time that I ever played a game, and I've been hooked since then. And I've done countless games and modules. I've ran things. I've played. It's definitely my favorite thing. Like I said, I've done other tabletop stuff before, card games like Munchkin's Remy, which is definitely hella fun. But, really Munchkins is D&D light,
Right, it's and that's why I think actually, I think Munchkin is one of the reasons I'm becoming more and more intrigued with playing a full game of D&D, because every time I play Munchkin, I just have the time of my life. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's fun. And I actually played a game for a while called Flames of War that was like a military tabletop game. And you had like points you could spend on building an army, and it was all done on. It was a D6 system. You use 6-sided die to do different things, and your different troops could move different number of inches on like this battlefield that you laid out and everything, which is pretty fun. But still, at the end of the day, the one that I keep coming back to really is the D&D or Pathfinder, which I use those interchangeably, really, because like I said, more or less they're the same system. And I mean, really, the big thing is, and why I know that you would like it, Remy, is just the amount of choices that one can make. There's no rules per se on your actions. There might be limits on what you can do based on the rule sets that's there. But if you walk into a building and and go talk to the mayor, or meet the mayor or whatever. In a video game, maybe you could only talk to them, or maybe you can't do anything with them. Maybe it's just a warm body filling up your screen. In this case, you could slit his throat or steal his purse or rifle through his drawers or whatever you wanted to do.
And then deal with the repercussions.
Exactly right.
Yeah, that's right.
The other thing that I really love about a game like that is you can set it wherever you want. And so if you look at something like the White Wolf games, Vampire the Masquerade or Werewolf the Apocalypse.
Wait, how's vampire spelled?
Correctly. It's spelled I-R-E. Spelled
That's why he plays it.
But
right, exactly.
But those games are draw really heavily from a D&D heritage, but they're made by a separate company, and they're all set in the modern era. Shadowrun, similar thing. The original Cyberpunk 2077, which is coming out, is based on a tabletop RPG, Cyberpunk 2020. So there's so much that you can do with that method of gaming.
That's actually, I don't want to interrupt Mike, but that's actually super interesting about Cyberpunk. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And it's funny because 2020 is too close.
I know.
They had to push the time back some.
It's like, I don't think
2020
we'll be there,
used to be
Jake.
so far in the future. Although I will say this, okay? So, do you guys have these robots that roam around your grocery stores now?
All the time.
I mean, like a Roomba.
No, not like a Roomba. This thing is like, I mean, Remy, do you seriously have one of these things? It's like this.
I have seen them. Yes. I've
Okay.
also seen them in Vegas serving drinks.
Yeah, exactly.
Essentially R2D2.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So I had not seen one of these things until a few months ago when I walked into the grocery store, and all of a sudden I turned the corner with my 10-year-old and my 6-year-old, and we turn the corner, we're going down the aisle, and there's this thing just rolling towards us, and we all and we all stop, and I was like, and I'm looking at this, I'm like, what the fuck? And and it's just rolling along, and it's got this little worry thing on it, and a couple of sensors, and some blinky blue lights, and it's just it's scanning and turning a little bit. And my oldest one looks at me and she goes, "What is? Why is there a robot here?" And I said, and I turned and looked at, and I turned and I looked at her and I said, "That's all you have to say?" And she goes, "Well," and she goes, "Well, it's just a robot." And I said, "You start being amazed by this right now. Do you
Right.
have any
This is the
idea how
future.
impressive this is? We are living in the fucking future right now. And in 1987, when I was walking around the grocery store with my mother and I saw this thing, I would have shit my pants. You be amazed, and you be amazed immediately." And she was like, "Okay, I'm sorry. It's really impressive." And I was like, "You're goddamn fucking right it is. Now hand me that box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch." And it just like,
So, quick question for you.
We are in the future.
We absolutely are.
Believe it or not, here down around these parts, we don't have anything like that.
Shocking. Probably, never mind.
This was all
Question for
big.
you.
Oh wow, Remy.
We're gonna breeze right past that. It's all good. Question for you involving D&D. So,
Okay.
Mike, you mentioned the ability to play a number of different environments. So, can you take what John was mentioning, the Pathfinder? Could you set that in space if you wanted to, or
Sure.
Okay, so you could really modify that experience in any way you want, which is where the
Yep.
originality comes in.
Basically, yeah. I mean, Pathfinder, I mean, like D&D, is technically just a rule set. It's a set of mathematical parameters that defines the context of the game. So
That's
there
really
was,
interesting to me. I always
so
thought of
there was-
dwarves and elves and all that shit, but
it can be.
you saying
But it
that,
does-
of course it can be, but you saying that just kind of
Space elves.
It blew my mind just a little bit because
Yeah.
I've never
Well, I
thought
mean,
of taking that to a different location or
There
time
was a,
period or anything like that.
And John, I don't know if this is still a thing. You tell me if it is. But I mean, like back when I was way into this, which is sort of advanced D&D 2.0. That's when I was playing the most. Spelljammer was a big campaign setting, and that was set entirely in outer space. It was basically like, wizards and dragons and spaceships and dwarves and elves and shit, but it was all intergalactic. It was fucking amazing.
That's really
And-
interesting to me.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
there was, but I mean, then there's the more traditional, like, Dragonlance and Forgotten Realms stuff, but there was a horror setting called Ravenloft.
Ravenloft. Oh,
Ravenloft was
That's
Nostalgia.
so cool. I had never thought of putting it in a horror setting or a western or a
I mean, you
space.
could, yeah. Oh, a western. You sure, Remy?
Fuck off.
a Dark Sun. Dark Sun is basically a western, post-apocalyptic western.
See, that could be
Yeah,
interesting.
your setting could be anywhere. You could be in Atlantis. You could be in space. You could be on a planet no one's ever heard of. And actually, I had a group of rule books for a D20 Star Wars system that was a lot of fun. As well.
Oh, dude, I played the Star Wars RPG. That was.
Yeah.
But I remember being really pissed that you couldn't be a Jedi because it was.
What the
because
shit
it's
is that?
set. Well, because
Well, it's not. it's not like that anymore. They changed it. This is the newest one. It's called the Saga Edition.
New and improved now with Jedis.
Well, no, because when I was playing,
Yeah, right.
well, because that's
It's
literally
working.
all-
It's working.
Well, that's literally all I wanted to. Oh, that's literally all I want. Because and like anybody who watches Star Wars, all you want to be is a Sith or a Jedi. What's the point of being in Star Wars if you don't have force powers and you aren't swinging a fucking lightsaber? Who gives a shit?
I want to be an Ewok.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I want to be from
the very first.
The
very first game that I played of the Saga Edition, actually, I made a force sensitive hut.
Fuck yeah, that's awesome. That's funny.
I can just imagine.
It was a lot of fun.
It's like, John, why are you eating all that? I'm in character. Boshuda, motherfuckers.
Don't worry
And
about it.
just stuffing his face full of popcorn and chips at the table.
Yep.
Solo. Kawashinga Kawachaka Wookie nipple pinchy.
Man, yeah, it was. Really, Remy, and as Mike said, was really the best way to put it, is that all of these things are really just rule sets.
Okay, so I'm about 100 times more intrigued now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, see, John, we're good at this. We're good at our job.
Y'all are salespeople, and you've done it.
And hopefully, yeah, that's true, Mike. Our careers are showing through.
Yeah,
and really, we've made Remy a believer here, and maybe somebody else that's listening too.
Maybe.
If you've never played a tabletop game before, we've just given you a bunch of reasons to try it.
I'd still be playing if I had people. If I had like a group of friends who were still living around here to play with, I would still be playing.
And the best thing about it is specifically for the Pathfinder, which is what I play mostly, is everything's online for free.
Yep.
You can just Google Pathfinder SRD. That's what it's called, and everything is on there for free. You can play with your friends, try it out. All the rules, all the splat books, everything is there. And really tabletop gaming in general. I would try to sell anybody on.
Oh, totally.
Almost more so than I would video games. Dare I say?
Oh, well then.
I honestly probably have more fun in general.
Well, fuck us then, huh?
No.
I know. I can't.
I would have more fun with you guys around a table than or over a table. No, sorry, that's
there we go.
On the table.
There we go. Oh man. Almost made it. Almost made it through the entire podcast without a single gay sex joke. But fuck me dead, man.
Yeah, I think there was one about midway there.
It's crazy.
Had to get it in at the end.
I see you there because of the butt sex.
Oh man, any
Jesus
credibility we just had
Christ.
was lost again.
We were doing so well there for like a solid 20 minutes. We were having a really good conversation and a really nuanced conversation about
honestly,
tabletop gaming.
it felt weird. It felt weird. That's
it
why.
did. I mean, not a single dick joke. Like
I know.
It didn't feel right. Now
it was just wrong.
Yeah, I know.
It was just wrong.
We're back on.
But yeah. On that note, I think that's going to be a good time to wrap up for this session.
Thank you.
Oh, Lord. For everybody keeping track, this was episode 12. Hope you enjoyed. And any of our content, if you want to check us out, is on thesonsofglitches.com. Hope everyone has a great day, and we'll catch you next time.
Take care.
Night, everybody.